The world within is approaching fast, not even a full month, and we'll all be able to play the first chapter of the World Soul Saga. So today, in the spirit of preparation, stay with me as I walk you through the steps to get a beautiful and efficient UI set up. If you enjoy your stay here, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This was Krill Legacy, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye! Alright fellas, so assuming that this video is not going to be only for the nerd and sweaty just like me and you, but also for newcomers or newbies in general, I wanted to give it a little introduction so that we can discuss a few elements that I think are necessary to understand the purpose of the video. So, first of all, you will notice across the video that many elements of my UI have been imported by other players, by the work of other players. So, my intent here is not to try and sell this stuff as it is my own, and I'm gonna make sure that everyone has a link in the description to go and check out their original work. It's an educational video, it's not about selling or advertising any UI. Okay, so I believe that in order to understand the importance of a UI, we should wonder why is it so important to have a functional UI while playing World of Warcraft. Well, honestly, in my opinion, I think the two important matters are performance and personal enjoyment. So first of all, whenever you're gonna be playing World of Warcraft, you'll be looking at a screen. So I think it's worth it to make it look pretty, right? So that's what concerns personal enjoyment. For what concerns performance, though, the analogy that I usually give talking about World of Warcraft is the following. To understand what World of Warcraft is, you need to think it like this. It is a game about managing resources, alright? These resources come in different formats. You have your HP, then you have your mana, your class resources, and then you have cooldowns and skills and so on and so forth, right? You got the point. The ability of a good player resides in how you manage the resources and how you spend it or how you build it and so on and so forth. So to circle back to the question why is it so important for performance? Well, a UI it's important because it allows you to track a lot of information on your screen effectively, right? World of Warcraft is not that game that you would define as a fast-paced game. It's not a shooter, it's not a fighter, it's not something that includes that much 1v1 or so on and so forth. But the amount of things that are happening on your screen at the same time is quite impressive. And so a tool like a well-built UI will help you quite substantially understanding what is going on and what your next move is going to be. Alright? Okay, now that we've seen why it is so important to have an efficient UI, let's see a few of the main building blocks that make it up. The first add-on on my list is ElvUI. This add-on provides a complete overhaul for the basic UI, basic Blizzard's UI. Through all these options that you can see here on screen, it allows to have your own customization of every single aspect of the original UI. Now, ElvUI used to be an almost mandatory add-on a few expansions back. Now it's definitely not the case anymore, but it still provides one benefit that I think it's worth it, which is basically providing some level of consistency to the way your game looks. As you can see, for instance, if I press I to get into my dungeon UI, you see that there is one type of UI, one style of UI right here. And if I press B, then I have the same style of UI. If I press ESC, I have the same style of UI. If I open my talents, or if I open my talent book, my spell book, all of the things being modified consistently makes the UI looks clean and enjoyable, in my personal opinion. Other than that, there is one other specific aspect for which I decided that it was important to keep on ElvUI, which in my case is the unit frames. As you can see here, my unit frames are hidden at the moment, as I am not in a fight. But whenever I enter a fight, you will see that my unit frames will appear. See, on the left here for my HP, and on the right here for the enemy that I'm facing at the moment. The profile that you're looking at the moment is a slight modification of a profile made by Cyril, which is a famous and very skilled healer player that I found on YouTube. He usually posts runs of his very high-hand Mythic Plus, and I usually look at his runs in order to learn, as he's much better than I am. And I noticed that he has this layout for his UI, so I decided to import his profile that he made public, and I made a few modifications, not too many, but I want to display why I think it's important and why I think it's well done. So first of all, you see here that your HP bar, well, is color-coded for your class, and is also very easy to see, and the same goes for your opponent. As you can see the total life pool, you can see the percentage life pool, and also you can see resources or things of that sort, right? You will notice that if I cast something, it'll also make appear a lot of the information related to a lot of the information related to the fight ongoing. For instance, there is my trinket here, the other option for the trinket here, and then let me rest a second, and then a few other elements like Light of the Martyr here. Now we will discuss these elements later on as they are part of a Weakaura, but the way that the unit frames are designed, it is meant to include these elements as well. All right. So if I open my ElvUI menu and I go on unit frames here, you will see that we have general definition of the aesthetic of it. As you can see, I have imported the now font as I really like it. Then, you know, a bit of information about the size and so on and so forth. The colors for auras, cast bar, class resources, heal prediction, and so on and so forth, right? And then the individual units. Through the individual units, I have basically set up these ones, and then I made sure that they would disappear unless I was overing on them or I was in a fight, which in my opinion make my UI look very clean when I'm outside the combat. Now, at the moment, I have all of this information right here because I am inside a dungeon. But if I were to leave the dungeon, you would see that all of those information conveniently disappear, as I don't need them outside the context of a dungeon. So now back to my ElvUI. Basically, this is the way that I have set up individual units. For my group units, as I am an healer player, I usually like to have my frames displayed on the bottom part of my screen. As you can see right here, if I press display frames, it will give me a preview of all my teammates, right? Of the hypothetical teammates that I could have right here, right? And I have them just below my class Weakaura. And I generally prefer this setup as it allows me to look in the center of my monitor as I deal with all of the with all of my teammates right here. Now, scientifically speaking, I'm aware of the fact that the human brain usually thinks more efficiently with vertical options. So the idea of having your unit frames displayed right here on the left of the central part of your screen will allow you, in biologically speaking, a better overview of your team. But I have tried it and I didn't find myself that comfortable, so I just resorted to this sort of organization right here, which I personally found extremely effective. Now on my unit frames, I'm also capable of displaying all of the buffs that are active on me, buffs or debuffs that are active on me at the present time. So if you check it right here, you would see, let me go through aura indicators, that they are enabled and they will show the auras through a textured icon on my unit frames right here. Then I have disabled the cast bar as I don't need a cast bar for all of my teammates. Then, you know, a bunch of other options. I don't have much of a fader. The fader at the moment is active only when people is out of my range, so that I know when somebody is in range or not. Then the heal prediction appears here, and I need this usually for just an indication on how potent my next heal is going to be. This is not a mandatory option. Sometimes I disable it depending on the situation. And we have the elf, and then we have information panel, which is disabled at the moment. The name, as you can see, the name is formatted in a short way, so that I don't get if the name exceeds, as you can see right here, right? If the name exceeds the size that is allowed, it will just display a short version of it. A phase indicator, then portrait is disabled because I don't like it at all. I honestly think that it looks awful. Power is enabled. It allows me to see the resources of my teammates. And then the role icon. The role icon is, again, not mandatory, but I generally prefer it. And then the resurrect icon. It shows when somebody's getting resurrected, all right? Which is especially useful for combat races. Now that we've seen how I have set up my ElvUI for party as well, let's move on to the raid. Now, all of the raid options are going to be very similar, but they're just going to be resized, and a few information are going to be removed depending on how big my raid party is, right? So, for instance, if you notice right here, we are in the situations in which we have a 20 members party. So this is my raid option 1, which is the most common. And in this setup here, I get the highest amount of information I can. Since this is my mythic raiding setup, I need to have all of the information at hand. Whenever I'm facing whatever kind of encounter I'm facing, I need to have the information that I have set up through the customizations bars right here on the left. When it comes down to raid number 2, this is what I usually use for situations like heroic raiding or LFG raiding in general. Basically, the raids that I found with random people, not my teammates, not my guild. Alright? And then finally, there is raid 3, which I almost never use, which is the biggest possible raid that I could get into. And I have set this one up only for open world situation, basically. Whenever you're facing, I don't know, like the big bear in the Mirjasil map, that kind of stuff right there. Nothing more. Now, before we move on and we talk about the next building block, there are still a few things that I would like to mention about ElvUI. So first of all, I use ElvUI to modify the way my chat looks, which I think is very clean. I have imported these options from the Now's ElvUI profile, as I think it looks very, very clean. So as you can see right here, basically I have just 3 options: combat log, services, and general. Then the way it looks, again, it's the Now font. So that is that. And then additionally, I have created this data bar, which generally just shows a few information about the game that I think are useful or that I like to have at hand whenever I need them, which basically are the FPS, the latency, the durability of my gear. You see each element of my gear and its percentage, and then a bit of the money and the currency that I have at hand on my character. Then again, just to recap, ElvUI allows you to have a complete overall of the Blizzard's UI. So you will find ElvUI in basically every possible tab. You'll find it in the Y tab, you find it in the U tab, you find it in the I tab, O tab, and so on and so forth, right? It basically completely overhauls the way that your game looks, and it makes it look very, very clean. As you can see right here, these are all the elements for which I have the ElvUI skin active at the moment. Alright, for my next add-on I would like to discuss about Plater. Its importance cannot be understated. There are very few add-ons as important as Plater. At the same time, it will not take us too long for a simple reason. The add-on itself is very complicated, so my personal suggestion will always be just download somebody else's profile, unless you have very specific experience or you really like the UI discussion or something like that. Unless you are one of these very few players, I would suggest you just choose one profile, import it, and go with it. My suggestions are gonna be the following 2. You can either choose the one that I'm using right now, by Nows, or the one that is created by Quasi. Both of them are amazingly good. I chose Nows simply because of aesthetical reasons. I just like it more. I don't think that neither of the two is better than the other. So my personal suggestion is just import them, choose whichever one you like, and then you'll be good to go. Alright, so what does a Plater profile do? Well, basically, it modifies these bars right here that you see on top of the mob. And these bars will provide you very useful information throughout every encounter that you will face. Now, as you can see from the mobs in front of me, the bars are color-coded. And the colors usually indicate the nature of the mob. Sometimes it's about his attack pattern, other times it's about the damage pattern, and sometimes it indicates whether it is a priority mob or not, or whether it will require crowd control or interrupt, and so on and so forth. Now, just below the bar, you will see that if I interact with these mobs to the point where they start casting something, you will see the cast bar right here. And then on the top left, you will also notice that it will give you an indication on which the next cast is going to be performed, right? Also, you see that the bars, they carry different colors, giving you information about the different type of casts. Some of them are crowd controllables, others are interruptible, and so on and so forth. Now, all these informations are extremely important, and it's some of the most important information throughout the encounters will come from this kind of interactions right here. So now that we have discussed the importance of a plater, I would like to show you a very hefty trick that I have learned from Quasi, the man himself. More than a trick, that is just a simple mod. Alright. This mod is called ElvUI indicator. What this mod does, basically will just display a little frame around the cast bars on your mob of a green color, indicating that your interrupt is off cooldown. So basically that you are ready to interrupt that cast. It is just a visual indication to know whether your interrupt is on cooldown or not. Just simple as that. So now my UI basically includes the plater by Nows and this little mob by Quasi. Alright, add-on number 3, and probably the biggest on my list, is going to be Weakauras. Weakauras functions as an IDE, like a development environment, in which you can sort of develop your own little add-ons, allowing you to track multiple events that are occurring in the game at the present time and displaying some alerts to show you what is happening or what might be happening or what's going on in general. Alright? So, while the potential of this add-on is basically unlimited, I have made a list of few of the most common Weakauras that I have personally included in my own setup. And they are the class Weakauras package, class-related Weakauras, dungeon pack and affixes, raid ability timeline, and then lastly, functional Weakauras. Alright, so following the order, the first one is going to be class Weakaura packages. Class Weakaura packages is basically this group of icons that you see right here in the middle of my screen, providing me information about the cooldowns of my class. As you can see, I have both information about my rotational cooldown and my utility. This specific class Weakaura packages from now, I only have used two different packages in my life. One is this one by Now, and the other one is by Laxtos. Both were amazing. Honestly, I just chose this one because of aesthetical reasons. I just prefer the way this one looks over the other. Obviously, you could customize it, so I could make the other one look like this one's, but given that I have imported so many different options by now, I decided that including this one would have probably been the better choice. Not too much to say about these Weakauras. Basically, it just helps you to have all the information in the middle of your screen, which is basically the same information that you could get from here and above on top of your skin here for the buffs. As you can see, I have my Divine Favor showing up right here, but I also have it right there. The purpose of having all of this information in the middle of the screen is just to help you reaching those information faster and more efficiently. You could play without a class Weakaura package, but it's just so much more efficient that honestly I wouldn't know why. I still have my action bar showing up because I'm still learning a few things about my class, so as soon as I'll be 100% ready to play Holy Paladin, I will just make my action bar disappear by just using the option by ElvUI of hiding the action bar. Lastly, I prefer to use a specific option provided into the Weakaura by just clicking on my class Weakaura package right there and going on the tab Load and clicking in combat and checking in combat. Basically, it will show my Weakaura only when I'm fighting against something. This way, I can have my UI look cleaner when I'm outside combat, maybe doing some open world content or whatever. You see, right here is not showing up. And together with the fact that my unit frames are not showing up when I'm outside combat, it usually makes my UI much cleaner. Next type of Weakauras that I would like to discuss are what I call the class Weakauras. Basically, it's just custom-made Weakauras by yourself or other players that allow you to track a few information that are specific to your class. For instance, in the case of Holy Paladin, I have imported a Weakaura that helps me tracking the Dusk and Dawn blessing. Basically, it's just a buff that my class gets when casting specific skills. And this Weakauras allows me to have a visual indication of when both the buffs are up and how long they're gonna last. Let me give you an example right here. So for instance, if I cast something or maybe something else. Okay, as you can see right here, they're showing up, and this is a visual indicator of the duration of this buff, how long this buff will last. Blessing of Dawn, as you can see, shows up right here as well. Needless to say, there is not a one solution fits all for these class Weakauras, so my personal advice would be to just be aware that whenever you need to track something, there is most likely going to be a Weakauras created by some other player on Waga.io that will help you track whatever your heart desires. Moving on, we have dungeon packages, affix packages, and rideability timeline. What these packages do basically is tracking the cooldowns of trash mobs, showing them on screen, and providing you information about the encounter that you're facing at the time. As you can see right here on my scheme, there are a bunch of information, and if you open up, it's going to be even more. There are going to be the icons above my enemy, then there is going to be the bars, and then there is going to be the bars for the trash, and then there is going a lot of information, as you can gather from just a few seconds. So I'm not going to display them all. I personally use this one, Dragonflight Dungeons, Waga.io Dragonflight Dungeons, which is honestly amazing. I was using the package provided by Now, which is amazing as well. But whenever I moved to this one, I found a few little, a few differences that made me prefer this one over the one by Now. Just basically these bars right here, which tell me who's going to be targeted by the spells of the trash pack, which is extremely useful for me as a healer, as it allows me to know whenever I have to pop an external or try to help my teammates. And also the way it displays the AoE here on the left, I just prefer it. It's just much easier for me to see that information displayed this way. So I have chosen this one, and for the affixes, I am using this one, Dungeon Auras affixes. If I recall correctly, yes, they are edited by Lucky One. Again, an extremely well done package with all the information about the affixes. Now, in the world within, it is going to change, but I'm definitely convinced that Lucky One is going to put out an updated version of this one. Lastly, we have the rideability timeline, which is just a simple add-on that will show all the information coming from big wigs on a vertical bar, like the one that is shown here on screen. This is not exactly my favorite one in terms of aesthetics, but at the moment the one that I usually use is not functioning and needs an upgrade, and so I'm using this one. There are a lot of different iteration of these specific Weakauras right here with different aesthetic looks and so on and so forth. Even this one can be customized to look differently, so I'm sure you'll find one that fits your style. Lastly, we have functional Weakauras, which are all those Weakauras that will provide you information that are not related to a specific encounter or to your specific class. For instance, in this case, we have Targeted Spell, which is a Weakauras that will show on your unit frames whenever one of your teammates is getting targeted by a specific spell that is going to be dangerous for whatever reason. We have different examples of these functional Weakauras. For instance, we have the M+ Automark, which is another Weakauras that I use to automatically track my to automatically mark my enemies in a dungeon. This helps with the kick assignment and the CC assignment. Then we have Annual Reminder. This is very, very useless. What this Weakauras does, basically, it just reminds me that I have to heal myself. I will just show some of the skills or potions right here, just above your name. And this usually helps me quite a lot, knowing that it is time for me to cover my ass, basically. That's what it does. Then we have others like this one, /say. This basically would just type into the chat, the say chat, the mechanics of the encounter. I found this to be very, very useful, as the chat bubble will appear over your head and remind you of a specific mechanic that you might have forgotten or that you might have overlooked because of the things that are happening on your screen at the same time. And also it helps your party members that might have, I don't know, Weakauras malfunctioning, or just like you, they might have forgotten about that mechanic, that specific mechanic. Just like the class Weakauras, it would be useless for me to try and cover all of them. There is an infinite amount of functional Weakauras. I have just shown you a few of the ones that I usually have, but I'm also aware that every time that I need something specific, I can open Waggle, look for it, and I will find something that helps me. For instance, the one that I just showed you, the health reminder, was a way that I used to teach myself how to be proactive in healing myself and not just healing my party members. And this was specifically useful when I was playing my DPS. It just reminded me that I cannot just only count on the healer, and so I use this Weakaura as a teaching method basically. Moving on, my fourth add-on is going to be the combo of little wigs and big wigs. They both provide you information about the cooldowns of the enemies that you're facing. Little wigs gives you information about the cooldowns of the trash packs that you're facing, while big wigs gives you information about the cooldowns of the bosses that you're facing. What you're seeing on screen here, marked by the green arrow, is the list of cooldowns of the boss that we're facing at the moment. And the purpose of this visualization here, as I explained earlier in my Weakaura section, is to help us plan the fight in an efficient way. For instance, right now we're stacking in front of the mob to move clockwise and avoid one of the mechanics. Next on the list is Omni Cooldown, which is a simple add-on that will help you track the cooldowns of your party members, and it will provide you the option of setting them up the way that you prefer. So for instance, as you can see on screen here, I have displayed my offensive and defensive cooldowns below the unit frames of me and my teammates. I have grouped up the interrupts of the whole party right here. And lastly, I have made it so that the crowd controls and the right buffs are displayed just above the interrupts. Next add-on on the list is going to be Details, whose purpose is to track information occurring on a specific time window. It is commonly used to display the healing per second or the damage per second, both for overall and for that specific encounter, but it also has other potentiality. For instance, by right-clicking on the window, you'll see a bunch of other informations that can be tracked and that are very, very useful in specific situations. For instance, in the last fight of Farak, it was very useful for us to be able to track the number of dispels. Or in a dungeon, it might be useful to know how many interrupts were properly used in a specific encounter. I mean, you got the point. A lot of information can be tracked using Details. And finally, for the last add-on on my list, we have Clique, a very simple add-on whose purpose is to provide functionality of mouse over cast. It is considered one of the most important add-ons for every healer player. Instead of selecting your target first and then casting your spell, you'll be able to mouse over one of your teammates and cast a spell, effectively cutting off the target selection action and improve your efficiency. The keybinds association with your mouse over can be set up on this menu right here, and it basically will associate an action like pressing left mouse button to the cast of a specific skill of your choosing. In this specific case, I have chosen to cast Holy Shock whenever I press my left button. So if I hover my mouse on my unit frame and I press LMB, I will cast Holy Shock. It is also worth noting that Clique will allow you to mouse over cast macro as well. So for instance, right here I have created a macro to cast my trinket, and by associating this macro with the keybinds Shift X, I'm capable of casting my Ward of Faceless Ire on my allies, as shown right here. Before ending the video, I would like to shortly touch on a few other add-ons that are not necessarily part of my UI, but still play a massive role in my personal setup. We have Bug Stack and Bug Grubber, which basically is a couple that will allow you to debug your setup and find eventual bugs. Then we have Akiri, a very handy add-on that will help you with your rotation when you're learning a new class. Hiding Bar will help you sort out your add-on access menu in a very clean way. Mythic Dungeon Tools, or MDT, which will help you set up your route and share it with your friends and your teammates. Pre-made Group Filter, which will make your looking for group menu much more efficient, providing you information about your teammates. Radar.io, displaying all the information about the competitive status of the selected player, such as Mythic Ride completion or Rio score. True Stat Value, a very simple add-on displaying the real value of your stats and the diminishing return. Warp Deplete, a better looking alternative to the classic Mythic Plus timer. And lastly, World Quest Tracker, an enhancer for your world map that will display world quest, open world bosses, and other open world activities. So this was all. This was a complete overview of my UI setup in World of Warcraft. If you made it this far and you enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you the next time. Bye guys!